recording.
Yeah, you can see here. Do you
Yeah.
see that?
Yeah, I get it.
Let's get the first thing out of the way. No.
What is that?
You can stay if you want.
Why are you scaring me already?
I don't want to.
No, it's all right.
I didn't want to do this today.
So I want to see your birth certificate,
Why?
like Obama had to show his,
Yeah.
because you keep saying you're half Ghanaian.
So that's the first question. My grandfather.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucking weird. What's wrong with you? Asking about where I'm.
You sound like a salesman.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. You know what Lebanese are like, mate? What's it called? Fruit bag mixes, mixed with everything. I'm sure you're not full Lebanese.
Mate, that's the story you used to tell everyone when you were 20.
You know what?
I actually got nothing to say to you.
I think I've got more questions for you. To be honest
You know,
with
all our conversations that we have are always over lunch, talking complete nonsense.
100%. I think sometimes
But
we
listen,
waste a lot of time. But
listen. On a serious note, I've got a couple of rules I always say at the start.
What are the rules?
Put your phone away firstly.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. You don't need your phone. But the second thing is no news reporter voice. No.
It turns on when the camera's there. I can't help it.
Yeah, no news reporter voice. Say things directly. They're my only rules. No one, I don't want to listen. When I listen to stuff and I start listening to people going, and it's the same. It's the same in business in everything that we do.
How many times have you randomly put a camera on me and I just turn into a complete
news reporter?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're transferring beliefs and energy to people. So it's your authentic, whatever you are. So why don't you be the geek we all know you are?
The geek.
We'll start with there. This guy, by the way, he's doing how many? What are you on track to do? What are you doing?
Well, 8 months in, the business has done probably 120, 130 sales, but the last, because we've plugged in probably like 8 salespeople.
What do you mean? What do you mean? But you're still talking old school, be it plugged in. What do you think it is? Sockets?
We've employed
electrical sockets.
Sockets, man. No, we've grown the team, which was actually.
Well, how many people did you have in your team? Let's start there. How many people do you have in your team, and how many people do you have now?
I started with 5. I've got 20 now. 2021. Yeah.
Okay. And what do you anticipate to have by the end of the year?
By the end of the year, I think it should be 40.
Okay, 40. But that's the thing. Like, are you growing a team for the sake of a team, or are you growing a team for the sake of impact?
No, for the sake of impact. Like, I think it's.
What's impact? Like, what's impact for you?
Impact to me is like getting to 1,000 sales a year. Like, it's not. Very quickly, I've realized doing 150, 200, 250, 300 sales. Like, I think there's a lot of people out there that do it and they do it really well, but it just becomes very bottleneck to yourself, and it's very hard to scale, and I can't do that.
I saw an interview you did.
Yeah, I know what you're bringing up. Yeah.
No, I saw an interview you did. I'm not. There's this saying that says, "Give someone 70 excuses before you judge them."
Yeah.
So I'm up to about 65 with you. The judging will come soon. 71. But seriously, like, you did this interview, and you were coming on board to this company.
I was auctioning everything.
I don't know what it was, but I listened to an interview. You sounded like a news reporter.
Yeah.
When you're doing these interviews, who are you talking to? This is an interesting topic because it'll lead us into something. Who are you thinking about when you're doing these interviews?
Myself, really.
What do you mean?
At the time, like, I was, I find that when you put when I sat in front of a camera, I was like, oh, this is a bit daunting. I've never done this before. And then you just sort of become a bit of a news reporter and just sort of trying to.
Yeah, but in the message when you're on there.
Do you know what? I think I was more concerned with what the public had to say than instead of actually trying to be as genuine as I possibly can be.
I don't believe that. How could you be concerned with what the public has to say when nothing you said benefits the public?
The industry. Yeah, when we talk about public.
So you kind of change what you're saying now.
Yeah. So it's more the industry.
Yeah.
Because you look at these podcasts and interviews, and as soon as you're doing like 60, 70 deals, there's always somebody that reaches out that wants to sort of have a chat to you, whatever the case may be.
You were doing how many at a time, like 150 or something?
160, 150, 160 deals or whatever it is. And I was pretty structured.
Yeah.
And I was doing about 120 to 130 auctions a year. Yeah. Doing that about 3-4 years in a row.
Yeah.
yeah, it was just they wanted to know what was sort of happening behind the scenes. It just sort of gave them a bit of raw footage in terms of what happens. But I think I think as the team grew, I was more of just a manager of people. Does that make sense? And the volume of sales that we're doing, we weren't really, back then, yeah.
And when you say manager of people, you had people you've had people in your company that were there with you for a while.
Yeah.
And
Josh has been with me 6 years, man.
do you remember?
Yeah.
Do you remember? I don't know if we should say this, but do you remember when you and Josh came? Josh is a legend now. You and Josh came on board, and you. What did you say to me when you rung me? Remember that thing about Josh is
So
he wasn't an agent.
No, so he knew it all, and I mean like this kid knew every agent, every result. He knew every agent. I didn't know half of these people. I was in a bit of a bubble, right? I met this kid who just knew everything. He knew what I'd sold even. Like he knew more about my business than I knew, right? And just didn't fit the typical real estate agent model. Does that make sense? Like, but has this energy and his frequency, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, but what did he do for 6 years when he was with you?
I was an associate with my team. Like he was essentially my second in charge at the time. But I think it's always like that sort of. Have you ever heard the Mexican jumping fly, whatever the case may be? Like I just feel like he set a ceiling on himself and just didn't see himself out of it.
When you say he set a ceiling on himself, don't you think you set a ceiling on him?
Yeah, I think so. I think the company that we were with at the time probably set a ceiling because we always seen.
But remember, you had a couple of limiting beliefs. Do you remember, like you're going into real estate mode, yeah?
Yeah.
Just tell it as it is. Do you remember we had that conversation? We had a conversation about, because for somebody to change and someone to evolve, they need to know the real, like people will say, tell me a problem, and if the person can describe it accurately, it means they were actually there when it happened. Which means
you know what? Like to be quite frank, yeah, right? Because I know where you're coming to with this, yeah. So
because people need to know.
No, but I look at somebody like Josh, who was in my team for 6 years, and now he's actually, he's listed 11 properties in the last 5 weeks, and he's, we were talking about 6 deals a month, and I actually had a conversation with him the other day, and I said, man, you're literally on track to do 130 sales a year.
Yeah, he messaged me the other day. I was
this is unbelievable.
Proud of him, and you've done a great job. But
and what I think it was is, I thought I knew leadership. Right? I had no idea. Right, like no idea, right? And I remember coming to you, and you were thinking, okay, well, you've got no actual agents in your team, and I was like, what are you talking about, right? And over the last couple of months, he's gone from associate to business owner, company full flown, hired staff. Now he's his own leader, and he's listing 11 a month.
But how does someone go from 6 years barely making impact, and then in the space of 4 months, he's a different person? Was he a different person, or was he always that person, but he was just lacking a little bit of belief?
You put a mirror not only in front of him, but in front of myself.
Do you remember that day when you came into the office, or we hardly knew each other, and you asked me something about him, you've been really soft around him or something. I don't know what it was.
You know what it was? I didn't know how to move someone with a limiting belief. And I probably had a self-limiting belief myself, yeah? I actually do, yeah. And
not as an agent, I don't think you did.
Not as an agent, but in terms of growing staff, right? Yeah. I just didn't know where it was going to go. Like, does he list 2 a month? Does he list 1? Does he list 3?
Yeah.
How many people does he impact? My God, I think it came down to is I didn't really have a sales process that I can actually teach him. What do I teach him besides charisma? Like, that's what most people do. You sit in front of somebody and you try and imagine them in a living room, and if you can't see it, you sort of don't think that they're going to be agents. Right?
I think it happened well before that. I don't think it was any of that. I remember clearly the biggest breakthrough for him was your perception of him. I remember that time you rang me and you said, I've been with Josh, I'm kind of like the way I'm dealing with him. I've got to be really soft around him, and I've got to do this, and I've got to do that. And then you came in, you wanted us to have that conversation.
Yeah. And I thought this is going to be great. And then all of a sudden, you just went into, Omar Obeid mode, and you just sort of started soft and then went really hard, and you just sort of reset the foundation of our relationship. Right?
Yeah, I remember really Josh was sitting there, and you guys were having a conversation, and you were seeing him as, and I just turned around, and I remember I said something to Josh. I
was seeing him as an associate.
Something like that. And I said something to Josh about, mate, you've been 6 years and you've done nothing.
Yeah.
Like, let's just actually map this out properly. And you thought you had to treat him a certain way to keep him within your business, because you were concerned that if you had treated him in a certain way, he may leave the business. That's what what was it? Why did you have to go softer? Why did you have to kind of like sugarcoat everything around him in your head?
I think I didn't want to, like I think there was certain scenarios where I thought I made a decision as a leader in terms of where I thought they could be, right? And it was actually my fault. Like it was the leader's fault at the time. Does that make sense? So I don't even know how to explain it. Like the question that you're asking is like, I think what really happened is you reset the foundation, you reset the belief, right? You gave him a target of 6 a month and six families that he's got to help. And, you know, with a couple of 1%ers along the way, all of a sudden his self-belief increased. He opens a company, doesn't do any debit credit or anything like that, hires staff, and then all of a sudden he's just flying.
Yeah, but how does somebody go from, oh, you know, because there's other people out there right now, right? And you could be leading a team. Somebody goes from 6 years working with one person. You're saying, oh, you know, I've got to be soft around him.
I'll be very clear.
And
right?
now he's on his own running a business.
No. Look at it this way.
How does that happen?
I think that sometimes the agent can get in the way of somebody else's growth, the lead. And I think I was in the way at the time, right? And you can sort of think of it as a very self-absorbed sort of thing. You know, like I was running my team, my business with my team. As soon as I stepped out of the way and let him go, he flew, right? And then on top of that, we sort of, you knew that he could. You still believe he knows what he's doing. Nothing has changed. He knows what he's doing, right? And now it's
he knows what he's doing now. He believes in what he's doing.
Exactly.
I think there's a big difference between knowing what you're doing. I was actually having this
Exactly.
conversation with someone the other day.
Yeah.
It's like logic gets you somewhere, belief takes you everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? Logic gets somewhere, belief takes you everywhere.
Yeah.
And I feel like he believes in what he's doing, but now he's able to basically.
I think I was also conditioned in the norm in terms of what I thought was a successful agent from where I was before.
Yeah, what was said to be a successful agent? Because you got to remember, we're a little bit oblivious to what was happening out there. And when I met you, I couldn't believe some of the stuff you're telling me.
We used to have a particular behavioural test, right? Just to sort of get an understanding of, you know, how assertive, diplomatic you are, whatever the case may be. What's your personality like? You know, sort of get an understanding of whether you can close or whatever the case may be. Right, and you'd be surprised with how many people just from that exam don't get hired or don't get an opportunity in real estate, right? And the funny thing is we originally didn't hire him, right?
When do you ever go to a listing presentation and have to do an exam before you speak to the person?
Oh, look, it's something that I've got taught a long time ago, and that's changed, and I've grown, and I think the people around me have grown. You've taught me a lot. It's just different, like, you know, it's like a tattoo. You know, you look back a year ago and what you used to think and what you used to do, and you think, God, I can't even believe I used to do that. That's all it is.
Do you remember that time where that conversation we were having about pointer signs, and you told me.
I've got a really good question about this. Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
Do you remember?
I spoke to you about. I was.
We had some outrageous. You were actually objecting to every single thing that I ever said when you first came.
A million things.
Do you remember that?
Right? You know what I find funny? Before I even get you to talk about that, yeah. In the 8 months that I've been here, yeah, and we're gonna get to that because I'm gonna grill you on that in a second, yeah.
Oh, mate, that was a good conversation.
Yeah, right, but in the 8 months that I've been here, I want to actually open up with something that I think will be really good for people to know. Yeah, I've never heard you talk about working hard. Right, I've never heard you talk about motivation. Right, I've never heard you talk about 5 a.m. clubs. Actually, I probably hear you talk about the opposite. Yeah, like I roll out of bed at 9 o'clock or whatever the case may be. I'm not saying that you do. You work incredibly hard, and everyone else in the company does. But why? Why don't you have that through the company? Like it's the only company, it's the only real estate office I've seen, and you know, you start to know every operator in the industry. They all sing a very similar song, but you're completely different. The company's different. The value's different. Why? Where'd that stem from? I don't get it.
Well, if you have to have, I was saying this to you before. Like I think a couple of really strong people have said this. If you need to give someone a motivational talk to get them to do something, that person shouldn't do it.
Why?
Because
why does that? Like I sometimes feel like I ring you and get a motivational talk.
You don't get a motivational talk.
You told me the other day it's not motivational talk. Like, what is it?
It's not. A motivational talk is getting somebody to come on, you can do it. You can do the next thing or whatever it may be. What you're talking about is you're calling and you're looking for direction inside of what your vision is. That's completely different.
That's fair.
So if you have to give someone a motivational talk to do something, they're most likely not going to stick with it.
Yeah.
They're most likely not.
It'll fade.
Think
is
about
what
back
you're
in the day.
saying.
How did you get to where you got to? Were people telling you, "Oh, come on, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it," over and over again?
No, I just had a roadmap. But I did go through ceilings. Like they'll go through
But that's
periods of like a 2 to 3 year period where I wasn't really growing, and then all of a sudden.
Let me ask you another question then.
Yeah.
Was Josh turning up on time most
Every
of the time?
day.
Every day.
Every day.
Was Josh keeping his word most of the time?
Yeah, always.
Okay. Was Josh kind, considerate?
Always. Yeah,
Was
yeah,
Josh
yeah.
trying hard?
Yeah,
Okay,
always,
so that guy doesn't need a motivational talk.
No.
That guy needs belief in what his future is going to be. That's not a motivational talk.
That's fair.
But if you've got to start saying to people, all right, what you need to do is get up at 5 a.m., mate, telling somebody you need to get up at 5 a.m. is probably the most, it's the most bizarre. Once I got up at 4 a.m. once. Right, because I wanted to try it. I looked around, I had nothing to do. I went back to sleep. I actually didn't understand. I was like, what's going on here? There's nothing happening, right? But my point is, it's not about giving somebody a direction like that. And so you people talk about motivation or whatever it may be, but I've learned a long time ago, if you're giving somebody motivation, just think back to every single person who's accomplished something or what they've done. They've got encouragement towards a vision they already have, or they've been helped with a vision. But when you start to say, I want to motivate someone to come in on time or whatever it may be, that you just give up before you start. Like there's no, I don't believe there's a point. That's my belief. I think motivation is not the solution. Vision is. That's the first thing. And that's the difference. So you ask, what's the difference? I would say every single person who's winning out there, like yourself, just doesn't know exactly what they were doing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know how many calls you made.
Yeah, or like in terms of specific real estate sort of stuff. Yeah, of course. Okay, that's a fair point. So you would say that if somebody needs to be motivated, they shouldn't be in the game. Is that how?
If you need to be motivated,
you shouldn't be in real estate. In sales.
Forget real estate in
sales.
In anything.
In anything.
I think if you need to be motivated, like if I need to be motivated to have a child, right? That's like, it's like, come on.
Yeah.
Let's have a child. You can, like, this motivation business is a waste of the leader's energy and a waste of the receiver's energy. Because all that you're doing is you're transferring a short-term belief to somebody of what they should be doing.
So can I ask you a silly question going on that? So when somebody makes a mistake or something happens in the business that's not in alignment with the values, right? When do you identify if it's the person's problem or the leader's problem?
Before we go there, do you remember? This is a good example. This is a great example. And this is the thing, like you're one of the best agents I've seen in relation to consistency and what you deliver, right? And I've learned a lot from you. But do you remember that day, Josh or somebody else sent you a message? This was interesting. So they sent you a message and they said, I'm at the listing presentation. You're not here. I booked it. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yes. It was Josh. Yeah.
And he said, what did he say? Something about I'm at a listing.
No, he said I'm at a listing presentation. Right. You're not here. That was another appointment. Right. He goes, you told me you were coming. Like,
he started to get angry about it.
Yeah, he got angry.
And then what did you do? You picked up the phone to me and you said,
rang you first.
Yeah, and you said what? Before I call this guy?
The first thing I said, how dare he? I was like,
how dare he obstruct the king?
And I was like, oh God. And then I spoke to you for 2 minutes and I was so thankful that I called you because I was like, what would have came out of my mouth would have been just verbal diarrhea and I probably would have just ruined.
But I think there is a difference here because when I'm not listing and selling, I'm in a different headspace. And the same, you can help me back the other way. But I think remember there what we said. We said, what is he really saying?
Well, at the time, he's just saying, listen, I want you. What he's really saying is, I've booked the appointment. I've told him you're going to be there. Essentially, he was saying is he didn't believe he was going to list it himself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that was manifesting in his head in nervousness, and he was passing it on to you.
Yeah.
And because you're so certain about what you're doing, you can't comprehend why he can't just walk through the door.
Yeah.
And so you pick up the phone and you start yelling at a guy who cares more than most because all he's saying to you is, please help me, I want to get better.
Yeah.
I need more belief to go and do this listing presentation.
That was a reality check for me.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And so what are people really saying? And if you're a manager, you don't hear it. And if you're a leader, you do.
That is true. I mean, that's what I was saying to you beforehand. You actually said it to me. You said you're a good manager of people, but you said you're a shit leader at the time. I remember that.
Well, from my perspective, from what I was saying, not now.
Not now, but like there's always room for growth at the end of the day.
All of us.
100%.
All of us. It'll go.
You know what? I've got actually there's an interesting thing that I wanted to ask you, because I think a lot of people actually get, a lot of people that want to listen to this will actually get something out of it, because we're going to have, yes, agents will listen to it, but other business owners will listen to it. Right? And I got a phone call the other week from someone who runs their own business, and he was seeing some of the growth from Josh, Sonny and Lorraine, Abdul, Dennis, Ahmed, Ash, some of the guys who have just taken off, and they're listing 3, 4, 5, 6 a month.
They got a long way to go, but they're doing
a long way to go.
But they're doing well.
Well, they're doing incredibly better from where they were, all right, at the time, right?
But nowhere near where they can be.
Exactly.
That's the key, yeah?
And
you can say you're doing incredibly better than where you were,
yeah,
but you need to finish a sentence and say, but nowhere near you could be.
100%.
Yeah.
And I remember he asked me a question. He goes, well, how did you get people that used to be in your team to full-fledged agents? And it's actually made me laugh a little bit, because I was sort of asking you the same question when I joined, how do I get these people into full-fledged agents? Yeah. And I think when I walked into this business, the one thing that I realized is you've got, 6 or so agents, or 7, I don't know how many you got now, right, that are all winners, complete winners. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Still can do a lot more. Yeah. But I came from a business that was it's an incredible business, but it was very micromanaged in the way we did our structured meetings, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. And then I'll say to you throughout the day, I'm like, have you spoken to Handy this week? You're like, yeah, here and there. Have you spoken to Imam here and there? Have you spoken to Daniel here and there? There is no micromanagement of your team. They're fully autonomous, writing, impacting, some of them impacting 70, 80 people, trying to grow to 100, 150. Some of them doing 40, 50, or complete number one agents in their core market, to the suburb. How did you get to a point where I think most people want to know is how? How is that even possible? Most people look at,
You know what? Everyone's going to think I'm going to answer now with the word belief, but
it's the weirdest concept that I've ever.
Do you know what it is? I think we did it. This was one of the biggest changes with your teams.
I'll be very clear. I know agents that have been in the industry for 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, but I don't want to hear that, because
once it enters you, yeah.
Once that enters your subconscious, and all that you're thinking about is, you're doing better than the rest. But that's not what we're trying to do.
No.
We're trying to impact the world.
Yeah, but how did you get people to just run?
Because
without you there,
I think it's one extremely practical thing. It's actually 2 things. Number one, it's the vision. Do they really believe it? What do they have? What is their vision? You can only go as far as you can see. So my job is to find out, what is that person seeing, not what I want them to see yet. I'm curious. What are you seeing? Like, you're sitting here. Let's say it could be Lorraine. Lorraine, what do you see for your future? How do you want to improve your life? What can we really see here? And when I see what she can see, then I instill a belief of going further, right? So if she's saying I can see 3 a month, helping 3 people a month, I'm like, all right, well, let's get that sorted, and then we're going to go to 6.
So you're outcome focused.
Outcome focused, but the vision has to improve their life. It has to be something that improves their life.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not, I want to do 6 a month. Is what does 6 a month do for the people you serve? What does 6 a month do for you? What does 6 a month do for your growth? Let's just put it out there, right? You've got Abdul. Abdul calls us and he says, oh, look, remember that time? He goes, he said, I want to help 6 people a month. Okay, what does 6 people a month equate to? It equates to X. So he achieves a certain number after 3 months.
Yeah.
And then
it was lower than X, but he was proud.
He was proud.
Yeah.
And I picked up the phone and I said, Abdul.
He thought you were congratulating.
I said, I heard you did this. And he goes to me, thank God, and thank this, and Jesus, and everything. Yeah. And I'm like, what do you think I'm calling you about?
Yeah.
We never agreed to that.
Yeah.
We agreed to this. And it's reminding them of how their vision benefits them.
Yeah.
Not the other way around, and I think that's the difference. But the second thing is, I think this is the most important. This is where you and I differed a little bit.
Yeah.
You came in with... I
think we differed a lot.
A lot, yeah. A lot. But you came in with a goal to, I want to get... You're getting how many? 70, 80 calls a day or something? I don't know what it was.
Normal,
Whatever, you were structured. One of the most structured person I've ever seen.
Yeah.
This is the difference. A real estate agent, which I find is insane, doesn't actually know what the product is.
This is where we had... This
is where we had... Yeah, that's true. So a real estate agent doesn't actually know what the product is that helps the consumer.
So just call it what it is, right? When I first met you, we spoke about this, yeah? And we had conflicting arguments, right?
Yeah.
And you said to me, what's your product and what's your process? And I said, well, I run auctions. I got my team. And you kept repeating the question. I started to get really angry. I started to think you were like, what's going on here? This guy's just like playing games or whatever the case may be. What do you define as a product? Like, what do you think like the industry needs? You say that you've got a product, a marketable process, you always say, yeah? What do you mean?
I say this, if you can't advertise your process or your product in sales, you've got a problem.
So what do you mean by that? So what is
it means that we both know when somebody runs a process of sale, a quarter of it explained to the owner and the other quarters of it is made up. Then what they've explained to the owner is different to what they produce, and what they produce, they fill in with gaps with their salesmanship and all that nonsense that they do. So we both know that's how the industry works. We just know, okay? Not for people's bad intent. They just don't have a genuine product. Okay.
So what I mean, they can't explain what they're actually doing.
They don't know what it is. So it's like this. It's like this. It's like this is where agents get stuck. Okay. This is what I found. This is how we've managed to get agents from here to here very fast. An agent comes in and says to an owner, we're going to go to Paris. Because that's what they've been taught to say. We're going to go to Paris. It's going to be the trip of a lifetime. And it sounds great. And the more enthusiastic and certain you are, the greater you'll be, right? And then all of a sudden, halfway through the trip, the agent has no idea how to get to Paris. They're lost. The owner's lost. And so the agent starts doing this. The owner turns around and goes, are we lost? We're not lost. This is actually the right way. And then start making things up until they work out how they're going to get to Paris, and eventually convince the owner after that to settle for the fake Eiffel Tower in, I don't know, their backyard.
So you said to me, right, if an owner had a camera, and I by the way, I abundantly agree, 100% abundantly agree with this, But if you said if an owner had a camera, right, and could see inside of our Oz Realty offices, and that was used as a process to actually pick an agent, that would pick us 100% of the time. Explain that.
Well, basically what you say and what your intent is and what you're trying to do, one way or the other, gets back to your market. So what I used to say is, we would have a conversation about what we used to have. You came from where you came, traditional real estate. You've come into here. It's completely different. We're having conversations. And the way I'd settle the argument is I simply say to you, listen, if there was a TV screen right now listening to our conversation, based on what I'm saying and based on what you're saying, who would win the listing? And you would say, well, based on what I'm saying here. But no, you know what I mean? And
I didn't want to give you a win.
And then I would say to you, well, if that's the case, you can't advertise your sales process. There's something wrong with it. So here's the thing. If an agent doesn't know a process, doesn't know the first step, second step, third step, fourth step, doesn't know whether to put a closing date, forward, back, doesn't know whether to use a price guide, no price guide, doesn't know whether to use expressions of interest, tender, auction. If they don't know when to make a decision at a critical point inside a structure, they do not have a process.
It's the art of knowing how to do a deal, like when to do things, why.
And if they have no idea how to do that, then they've got to
communicate that to the owner. Is that what you're saying?
How to communicate it, but how to execute it, and then how to get a systemized process that actually delivers it. And if an agent does not know those three things, then how on earth could they add any type of certainty to an owner?
It's a fair call.
They're going to have to do it via carrot.
Charisma.
You support the Bulldogs? I support the Bulldogs. What's that whole thing? Rapport, needs, wants, close. That old sales structure.
Yes.
Yeah? How many times were you taught back in the day or you heard someone train someone about trying to build rapport in a way where we look at something that's we both like.
I was speaking about that to you the other day. Like the old school sales structure is like, find something that you align with the owner with or whatever the case may be.
What's more alignment than the maximum outcome and a great experience?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
What do you do? What did you used to do when a dog used to, when you go to a house and the dog comes up to your leg, you used to pat it?
Yeah, but I like dogs. You don't.
I say to the owner, I'm scared of dogs and it's going to bite me and I don't want to get anywhere near it. Oh, you can't say that because you got to pretend you like the dog. It's absolutely absurd.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
So you walk, what I find funny, right? So
what was your let me ask you a question. What was your team absolutely certain about? You actually asked me this the other day. What was your team absolutely certain about before they came here? Because you were successful before you came here in the realms of the definition of success is you've done deals. What were they certain about? What were they certain about? Yeah.
The numbers, just, this many appointments, this many listings. Just what the typical metrics of real estate were.
Yep.
Right?
And you did a great job to hold them accountable to that, yeah?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so they were certain about doing that.
Yeah.
Did they excel at that?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, they excelled at that.
Yeah.
And then you would come in as the agent, you would run a process, you'd use your salesmanship and charisma and blah, blah, blah. But when your own team went to that presentation, what would happen?
They didn't have a process inside like that can actually communicate with the owner. That's all it is.
So they weren't.
Like it generally come down to, like, just say somebody missed a listing, right, or whatever the case may be. They would say, they'll blame it on the typical stuff like fee, objections, or whatever the case may be. But or they'll turn around and say, maybe don't be this way. It's like you're trying to change who the person is, be more charismatic or whatever the case may be, which you can't do. Like you can't.
But it's yeah. I remember this. Like let me give you an example. I heard one guy say once, when you go to a listing presentation, use the point of difference. Okay, what's the point of difference? How many offices you have? I got 100. Tell him you've got 100 offices, and we've got a lot of reach.
Yeah.
So my question is, Mr. Advice Maker, what do you say to the person who's got 2 offices? Well, at 2 offices, you're more bespoke. So which one's true?
Which one gets you to maximum?
Which one's true?
Yeah,
that works.
Yeah.
So, do you know what I mean? It's like, when do you sell your home? If it's winter, winter's the greatest time to sell your home. Just happens to be winter.
It's funny. I actually said to my team the other day.
You don't think all that's weird?
No, this is what I said to my team. I said every objection that an owner has, everything, right? Like I'll give you an example. Look, do we sell in Christmas time? Do we sell in winter? Spring, there's more, there's typically more supply or whatever the case may be. Every objection that has ever come from an owner has actually came from a story told by an agent.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree with that.
So when an agent gets upset at an owner's opinion about something in real estate, I always say just understand that if you step away for a little bit, that came from the previous agent or someone that previously sold or bought through them, right? So never get upset about how people deal with you in terms of negotiations, because how they deal with you generally came from the last agent that actually dealt with. When someone says to me, like it's really funny, like someone said to me, I don't want to sell in Feb, for just because people are still on holidays or whatever the case may be. And I think, well, where did that come from, right? And I asked them, I go, where'd you get that opinion? And they go, well, the last agent told us to do that. And I was like, okay. Now I understand it. So every objection that an owner has comes from a previous experience that an agent's actually given them.
And every objection that an owner has links back to one thing. What they're really saying is, if I do this, I won't get the maximum outcome.
Yes.
That's what they're saying.
Yes.
So if an owner is objecting anything that you're telling them, what they're really saying to you is, I don't believe by paying you this, I'm going to get a return. I don't believe that if I do what you're telling me, I'll get the maximum outcome. So essentially they're saying the value that you're offering isn't where it needs to be.
But that opinion came from the industry.
It's a belief.
The industry, yeah.
It's a belief that's been passed on. And as an agent, when you go in there, well, your job's to do that. So I think that's something that we maybe butted heads over a little bit when we first came
100%. I've got an interesting one for you, right? So you obviously know somewhat how I came across the company, yeah? Like I was looking at buying in the area.
It took you 2 years to join this company.
Yeah, 2 years, 2 years. And I remember speaking to Karim.
Not that we were chasing you for 2 years.
No, not at all.
Actually,
it was a bit of a weird relationship. I didn't know what was going on. Right?
I didn't know what was going on too.
At one stage, we were like, "Are you joining or not?" You know what I mean? Like, what's going on?
I don't know what happened.
Right? There, it was such a, in my mind, it was such a big decision. And actually, long story short, but I remember speaking to Karim, and Karim goes to me, well, I'd love for you to meet Omar and Joyce. And I was like, yeah, just get him to give me a call, right? I was like, just get Omar to buzz me, and if he wants to organise a meeting, you can organise a meeting. And he goes, nah, he's not going to call you, right? And I was like, geez, who does this guy think he is, yeah? And
it wasn't from arrogance, man.
No, it wasn't. But what I found crazy is, Karim used to say to me, he goes, man, he was pushing you to grow. And I think a lot of people were trying to push you to grow the business at the time. But you're so protective. Yeah. Extremely, right?
Yeah, I think a guy who was doing 150 deals from a typical real estate structure
looked at problems,
actually worried me.
Yeah, it's scary.
I didn't look at that as, this is going to be great.
Like you were the first person I spoke to where, like, I'd spoken to other people. People would reach out. you know, I felt like people would want to take me out to dinner to try and convince them to what's it called, come over or whatever, like it was a date or whatever it was. And I thought it was just typical real estate, you know. And then I met you, and we had conflicting arguments, but I was like, man, this guy's like actually scared I'm going to ruin something. And I was like, what? I guess why? Why such protection? Like you held it so dear.
What do you think it is since you've come here?
Sorry?
Or what do you think it is since you've come here? Because now your business has gotten significantly bigger.
Yep.
But you're doing less, significantly less.
Yep.
But you're making significantly more impact.
100%.
Now, if what's led to that?
Why were you so protective though? What scared you about other agents in the industry? And what did you want to protect?
Well,
values, beliefs. What is it?
It's like this. It's like
It's like your little baby.
No, you know? it's like if your daughter one day decides I'm going to get married.
Yeah.
And she brings somebody home.
Yeah.
And that person's all of a sudden we're sitting around the table saying, right, this is how we eat, this is what we do. We don't have to be exactly the same, but these are our values and this is how we work. And the person that comes in, he's got all the money in the world, whatever it may be, but the values misalign. You know that no matter how much growth is in our family and his family, at some point as that relationship continues, where it's going to happen two ways. We're going to move away from each other and we're going to start to move away from what the most important things in our lives are, relationships. So if I know right now you come into the business, you increase the bottom line for the business, but the values are different.
That's a problem for you.
We're in that relationship. We're in a relationship. Well, try and get married to somebody with different values. See what happens.
Yeah, I agree.
You can have different opinions.
Yeah.
You can have different personalities.
But not different values.
Yeah. And I think if the foundation of values are different, if you and I have one thing I loved about you is you and I used to have conversations. But in the end of that conversation, the value came back to the same thing, even though you were trying to steer away from what we were doing, right?
Came back to the consumer.
Whatever it is, it came back to the same thing,
Yeah.
right? It came back to the same thing. And so long as we could bring we could argue and argue and argue and argue, but so long as we arrive back at the same point, the relationship continues again. We go to sleep, we wake up, we build again together.
Yep.
If you can't agree on the foundational principle of what you're trying to build with the person you're bringing in, then what will happen is over time is either the company will move away from that foundation or the argument will slow down the growth of that. So I think it's faster to go around the world holding on to a value than it is bringing somebody who does 500 sales a year.
Well, because you've been doing, how long has the business been open for? 20? 30? No, 15?
Nah, it's going to be 15.
15 years.
But not to what we're doing now.
And
though.
based on what you're doing, like I remember like thinking to myself, man, because I didn't get it. I'll be honest, I was completely sort of like.
What didn't you get?
I just didn't get the fact that you were 15 years in, you're out of sales, you had a marketing company, everything looked immaculate, and I was like, this is like a really slick and good operation, autonomous agents, you know, good values. And I think, how is this not like 1,000 offices? I just didn't understand it, right?
Because of about scaling the product.
Yeah, and that's
and we've done that now.
So now I flip the coin. Now you're pushing the growth button carefully. It's not. You're not frantic.
What have you been able to do? I look at it like this. What have you been able to do?
Yeah.
Now that you couldn't do before, with what we've given you, and you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've given me a consistent, marketable product that's tangible that I can teach and let other people grow. Real estate to me is different. It's not about salesmanship so much no more, right? Yes, there is. Yeah, a little bit of that. There's always going to be a little bit of that so much, but it's not heavily around that. It's more about values of the person. Like I sit down with people and start thinking, okay, well, one, are they winners? Yes, of course. But two, are they good people? Are they going to give me, headaches when I deal with the consumer later or whatever the case may be, right? What the business has given me is a marketable product that I can take to somebody like Josh, somebody like Abdul, Lorraine and Sunny, who, Lorraine had been in the industry for 4 years. The same thing with Sunny. Ash, right, been in the industry for a while. He even started in property management, and go, okay, well, if you follow these things, right, and you understand it, and you understand the problem in the industry, right? Well, and you have a solution, go for your life, right?
I think that's a good point.
Yeah,
is
that's
when
what it's given me. I
yeah.
couldn't do that before. Like if I hired 10 agents.
But how does it work? Like how does it work? Like before, you'd list the property, and then you would work out. Somebody would work out what they're gonna do somewhere.
Yeah, like it just mind boggled me. I never actually thought about it. Like you actually brought it to my attention first. You're like, okay, well you go hire 10 agents. Go 10 agents go and sit with owners, and then they give them a product that really doesn't exist, and then they do something different. He goes, doesn't that give you anxiety? That's what scared you. You know?
Yeah.
You were like, if there's not a consistent product, and you kept using the example of, whether it was Chanel or McDonald's or whatever the case may be, no matter where you go in the world, it's the same thing. But with real estate, you can go to an office across the road and it's completely different, right? The industry itself is so different in the level of service and outcome internally, right, and values, right? Yeah. But you don't ask for a Big Mac in Japan and ask for a Big Mac in Sydney and expect a different product. Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's universal. But you've been able to now go from, and this is what I mean. Whether you're a top agent like you were, there's always different levels. Like for you, it was not only more numbers, it was more time.
100%.
And you've managed to do that by a couple of things.
Yeah.
Training your team on being certain around the process.
And everything comes with that. How they communicate with the owner, they're certain now. How they communicate with the buyer, they're certain. They've got a structure within the business to be able to, it operates within this, right?
And you're getting them there fast because they're running off. It's the system is improving them.
Yep.
They're not improving the system.
Yes. And they're following the system.
They're following the system, which means that the owner is going to get a consistent pattern.
Yeah.
And a consistent outcome.
How did you come up with the system? Like, what is you always say it's your IP, what you used to do, right? Me and you joke, but I still believe that you've got the best, I'll say, way to achieve the maximum outcome on scale that I've ever seen, right?
Mm.
How long did that take to create?
That's why we didn't scale it.
Doing it, yeah.
Yeah. So what ended up happening is people say you start down a hallway, yeah? I've heard this before. And they say all the doors are open. And these are kind of objections or concerns from the seller. Everyone says close the doors.
Close the doors. Yeah.
So there's a couple of ways you can do that. If the seller gets ahead of you and sees a door open, they bring your attention to that door. That's not a good experience for the seller. Immediately they're like asking questions. So you got to understand. If somebody's preparing their home for the weekend, let's say my wife and I are preparing the home for the weekend. My wife then turns around and says, listen, I'm getting the kids ready. Are we still going to open it on time if it's raining? That's a question from my wife in that sense, okay? But she's asking it under duress. I then pick up the phone and I ask the agent really calmly, hey, just want to know. But that soft question I asked came from a really negative thought. So if that question isn't looked after before it's answered, you're going to have somebody who's starting to have not so great experience. So that's closing a door with the owner.
And then it just comes down, to that old school real estate where the more charismatic that person is.
That's right. But there's 100 of those doors. So the issue now is you've got a person who's going to be trained on getting leads and they're not trained on the product to make sure that the owner gets the maximum outcome and has a great experience, high state experience. They're two things. So now all of a sudden you've got the door. What we developed was we could go through there's about 107 of these things that keep an owner in a high state. We could go through that system, link to a sales process that maximizes the outcome and then communicates it. That's the second part. And we could go with the owner and go close, 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 close. Or you can go in front of the owner and they can see the back of you and you go close and you steer them down. Or there's a third option.
Well, you've closed everything and then you're looking back at the owner.
You sprint down the hallway, you turn around. As you're sprinting, you close everything. You look back at the owner and you gently guide them to where they want to be. And that's the greatest experience because it means the tour guide knows exactly where they're going and how they're going to get there.
Yep.
And I think that's the difference. That's how we're building. That's how we've been able to build that. Now, we were only building that with things like WhatsApp and that. But then we moved it now to something that's scalable, as you can see, from the moment you actually
100%
connect with Nona.
So you've pushed the growth button, right? But you're reluctant to do it beforehand. This is the scary part. I actually think that Belief, the platform, it's in its infancy. Yeah, like you're still a long way away from where you want it to be.
Yeah.
I've got a silly question for you, right? You know, I think a lot of people know what I've learned from the company, from yourself, the team, the guys that work here. What have you learned from us?
What I said when you first came on board, you guys, yes, you didn't have a complete structure or a process or marketing message, but the compensation, at least what most people do, the compensation via the discipline that you have to compensate for what you didn't have is extraordinary. So it's like you would run an extra 6 kilometers every single time that you didn't need to run, but you ran it every single time. And now the second tier of that is they would see that extra couple of kilometers coming up and they'd run it once, but not again. And what you did really well is you're able to create a very simple message for your team to follow with similarly an outcome. This is what I want you to do per day. You did that really well. And how did you do that? How did you do that? Because you were still one of the best agents in New South Wales. How did you do that?
I was blinkered, man. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it was sort of, I think most agents that, if you're doing 60, 70 deals a year, man, like even 50 deals a year, you're pretty blinkered. Like, and I sort of look at it.
You're doing that a month now.
Yeah.
Or close to.
The team. You're not me specifically, the team.
Yeah.
Right, the team. I think at the end of the day, I didn't, look, there are times where I'd overthink, but there was a couple of things that I didn't overthink, and it was the natural metrics of real estate, right? You call it belief. I just believe that, if I did this would happen. It is what it is, yeah? I used to have a belief, and probably a little bit different. I used to believe, the harder you work, the luckier you get, So I think for my team, I just wanted to keep it as simple as possible, right? And if I knew if I just did that for long enough, eventually, it was like, that guy that was just digging until they find diamonds or whatever the case may be. And in turn, on top of that, I would argue, right? I used to argue with you that we had a marketable process, but the belief was what we were doing got the maximum outcome. Does that make sense for our owners?
Yeah.
And then from that, built within a community, spread.
What are some of the things you think people need now that you didn't think they needed before?
If I was operating like,
there's people out there right now. What do you think they need?
I'll tell you, to be honest with you, I was like at max, right? I was selling between 150, 160 homes a year, like, within a pretty tight knit community, yeah. And naturally, you'd go, "What's next? Do you do 200 or do you do this or whatever the case may be?" But then I used to get scared. I used to think, man, if I do 200, 250, like, what time do I go home? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What time do I start?
Yeah. And you link that back to the number, not your process.
Yeah, and I was like, God, I was doing like 4, 5, 6 auctions a weekend, and it's actually not massive numbers in comparison to some people in the industry, but I used to think to myself, what do I do? Turn into 10 auctions a weekend? Like, how am I going to live? You know what I mean? And it was really funny. I was speaking to a friend of mine who's running a very similar business to how I used to run. And I go, "How are you going?" And I could just see the sap of energy draw from him. So I think if I knew this was available, like how, the tech that we have behind the scenes, I think I probably could have done 300 sales. And I would have felt like I was operating at 70.
Yep.
So it gave me freedom of time. And in the sense where not everything was bottlenecked through to me, yeah? I was still the controller of the deal and controlling the outcome, right? But it allowed me to operate at a level which I couldn't humanly possibly operate at 300 to 400 sales a year, right? 4 sales a month, 5 sales a month, I believe, like, there's not a system in the world that could beat what an EBU could do, a team of agents can do. Like, nothing is going to beat that interaction. But you get to 80, you get to 100, 60 even, right? You get to 150, 200, 250. The only person that starts, we've got the right systems behind the scenes, the only person it affects is the consumer.
100%.
Yeah.
So you've got an agent goes in there. they list the property, they don't list it properly. They don't talk about the solution. They walk into the office. I've just signed this. They ring a bell, whatever it may be. They put the property on the market. Owner doesn't fully understand the process. Photos are booked. Photos get changed. Owner doesn't get told. Owner gets annoyed. Owner calls. Photos start again. It's raining. Doesn't get rescheduled. All of a sudden, there's a house on the market. The feedback's not there. The call's not there. The owner's emotionally strung. They're in a very, very, very lowered state. And then suddenly the agent starts to pick the pieces and try to put it together, and then they go, let's go again. And I've got to make more calls at the same time to bring people into the business. And this starts to circulate, and that energy transfers to the seller, and then the agent needs an out, so they go out at a party, and then this thing just goes down and down and down and down and down. And it all starts with, I think, the product.
I agree.
I think that's where it starts. It's where it starts and ends. Anyway, there's three things. Yeah, the three things that like kind of wrap it up. We're talking about
I know I've got 1,000 questions here for you. That's all. I've just written them all down.
Why for me? I've got questions for you.
It's more of it's not even about you. It's more about the consumer, like who's actually going to be listening to the podcast, right? So I look at it this way. You know what? I want to talk to you about hiring. And I think a lot of people have, I guess...
You're great at hiring.
Yeah.
You're great at hiring.
You know what?
You've hired some of the
I've been blessed in that way. I've got really good people around me, extremely.
Yeah,
it's a blessing.
Yeah, it's just now these people are stepping into their own shoes.
Yeah, but to the point where I'm scared of who else I bring on. Right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So it does frighten me a little bit.
Yeah, but that's a limiting belief, man.
Yeah, but like I just think like we've got such a good frequency. Yeah. But at the same time,
you know what I love about you, Ibby?
What?
This is what I love about you. I absolutely love people. They inspire me that understand that being comfortable leads you to nowhere, and at the same time understand they work because of purpose. If you mix those two things together, you go from 10 deals, 20 deals, 30 deals, 40 deals, 50 deals, and you still say, no, 100 deals. No. I need to go to this location, that location. You never seem like you want to stop growing and making things easier. Why do you do that? Because some people just get comfortable and they sit back. Like, you don't really have to do any of this.
Do you know what? I can only go as far as what I've seen before, right? That's what I've noticed about myself, right? There are people that I know that have, I can sit there actually, you said it yourself, like, I was freaking out about opening the office. You're like, man, it's 4 walls in an office. Who cares? Like,
that's what people...
You're like, 80% of the country's on it. Like, whatever, right? And then we talk about another office. I remember I said to you, listen, I want to open up another office in Campbelltown. You're like, okay, cool. Then we met Owen, who's an incredible agent and a really good operator. And I was like, okay, do we go Penrith? And then I was like, okay, cool. No worries. We're going Penrith. We're going Glenmore Park. And I'll tell you what's funny. What gives me comfort in doing that is I think, well, if people are doing this without what we have, right, this is going to get a hell of a lot easier, right? So, like, what would have given me confidence to open up in Penrith, right? Would I have had the confidence to open up in Glenmore Park, right, with Owen, who's already incredible, but now has a systemized process, and now we've hired another gentleman named Mario, who's going to be an absolute winner as well. Could I have done that 50 Ks away from where I am, right? Or 40 Ks away from where I am.
Without any admins, without any of that.
Without no admin, nothing.
And still get the same level of...
Go and know that someone in Glenmore Park is getting the same consistent...
Same frequency, same tone, same everything.
Everything, right? I think that gives me comfort. But also at the same time, I like the fact that I feel like I have to be around people that are operating at a faster frequency as well. Right, like I talked to you about opening offices, and you're talking about, having belief in every real estate office in the country, right?
No, in the world, I think, because it's the same. It's the same issue, man. You come into our business, okay? You're doing 150 deals a year, maybe 170. One of the best in New South Wales, let's say, one of the best. You then turn up, you're doing those deals, and then your life is improved from the value that this system that we gave you improved your life, right?
Yeah.
So if we can do that and your consumer, the person you serve, gets a better experience and you get a better life and it works for someone like you, and then you take someone like Josh who's got hardly no experience as a solo agent, he becomes solo agent straight away. And now his consumer and the person he serves is having a great experience. If we can do that, and I look at it myopically, if I can do that with 2 people, then we can do it with the entire planet because everybody's experiencing the exact same issues. And that's how we look at it. And so when you look at like, when you go back to hiring and stuff like that, yeah, it becomes important.
What do you think of the right ingredients?
Um,
Someone like, what if somebody has all the right ingredients,
yeah.
but lacks belief, right? And I mean, like, he's sharp, looks after themselves, kind, generous, whatever the case may be. The things that you would look for in somebody.
I think the
That is
people
telling you.
I think the people that overthink have the greatest opportunity to do something great, but don't because.
Would you rather large ambition with not the right ingredients, or
I-
would you
I-
rather
I-
the right ingredients as a human, and then you have to instill belief?
All right, this is a good conversation. So people that come on board and you have conversations with these big visions,
Yeah.
but without micro focus, I'm running. I'm not running. I'm gone. Absolutely gone. Right, I'm tuned out completely.
Why?
Because someone who's got a big vision,
Yeah.
if you've thought about the vision that much, but haven't taken the next step, it means you don't believe the vision. And if you've thought about the vision that much and haven't taken the next step, well, you're just lazy. So somebody who goes on about a vision but doesn't look at the next step. So I'll talk about going worldwide, but then I'll ring you and I'll say, hey, look, I've just looked at your group and the sentiment is slightly low because this person asked, I don't know, can I have just another look at the photo? And then you say to me, oh, but that's just a simple question. I'm like, yeah, but they had to ask it, which means
You're like, why is that question even
Why is
there?
that question?
And then you change the whole bloody system again.
and I change the whole system again. In our office, the phone never rings. And if
Yeah.
it rings, I get annoyed.
Yeah.
So I pick up the phone and I try to find out why it's the person calling.
Yeah.
And then we try and put it back through the system again. So that's one thing. Someone with this big vision, but without a micro focus. Then you have other people that come in and they've got such a small vision, but they've got this big energy. And then you look at them and you go, their vision's small,
Yeah.
but their energy is infectious.
Yeah. Yeah.
These guys need guidance. They need a transfer of belief, transfer of vision, a transfer of something.
So if from someone who's listening to this, who's got a business, right, who's opened up, whether it's a small bespoke brand, big franchise, whatever the case may be, right, what would you tell them are the right ingredients to look for?
I would say the best way to do it, something really small.
And what's
Let me give you a better example.
Yeah.
I've got a big vision. I want to be one of the greatest agents. Text the guy after 6 o'clock, doesn't respond for an hour. I'm like, well, that's not micro focus for that big vision because in this game, you're going to have to text immediately. You're going to have to respond. It's a communication game. So you've just told me you want to take over the world, but you haven't responded for 2 hours with no real genuine reason. And then all of a sudden, when they finally respond, the reason of why they're delayed is dismissive. So what we look for when we're bringing people in is we're watching that. We're watching, and that's not at the level where somebody's at your level. It's completely different. But when you're bringing somebody in,
I was going to say I'm a bit, what's it called?
or you did. Oh, you remember what happened with the WhatsApp group?
Yeah, you left.
What happened?
Because I said to you, sorry, I've got a couple of appointments, and you just left the group and said, I'm not dealing with this. See you later.
Yeah, but why do you think I did that? Like,
you know what? To this day,
you can't be a selectively good person.
Yeah.
You can't say, well, I'm going to be. You can't scale. You can't scale a process you can't advertise.
Yeah.
So you can't scale. Oh, look, what I'm going to do is I'm going to speak really good to this vendor, but this person I'm not going to reply to. So you're a selective good person. And when you're like that, you actually lose a lot of opportunity because you're not transferring the right energy. So I looked at you and I thought, this guy's doing 200 sales a year, 150 sales a year without a system, without a process, without a structure. You're unbelievable.
I wouldn't say that, but yeah.
For the ingredients you were using to win, I think you could do like so much more, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. So when you're bringing somebody on board, why have an interview with somebody who, let's say you're on the phone, you get off the phone and you go, oh, thanks for your time, and you send them a message. Hey, thanks for your time. We'll see you soon. They don't respond for 3 hours. Just cancel the interview. The interview's done and dusted. They've shown you in the detail of how they operate what their values are. I'm looking for values. Do you value relationship? Do you value people? Do you value, is your intention good?
You wouldn't say somebody's just busy?
Busy?
Somebody's speaking to their family?
Well, unless it's, well, that's great. They should respond and say, I had a family emergency, in which case I'd be empathetic enough to greet that. But you start to see a consistent pattern. You start to see, when somebody first starts, what do we do with when somebody comes on, you say to them, what I want you to do is I want you to go, here's what you can do if you want to do in the service industry. Somebody comes on board, they got no value to offer. They just want to get started in the industry. They come in with their little slick suit. They tell you their big vision. I mean, number one, I'm going to do this. And it's like wax on, wax off.
Suburb, number one in this. I
want to be number one of everything. Okay.
And everybody, for some reason, right? No one actually just. It's funny because the first thing that comes out of people's mouths these days, and this is an industry thing, right? I want to be number one comes out first before I want to help the consumer. Right?
Yeah.
So.
But it's the Mr. Miyagi wax on, wax off. So you bring him into the business. Try this. You bring him into the business and you go, okay, what I want you to do, you're new to the business. I'm going to ask you a few questions. Can you offer the person you're serving any value right now? Can you list and sell a house and get the maximum? No, I can't. Do you know how? No, I can't. Do you know how to actually get those people within the business so we can help them? No, I can't. Okay, so you've just told me you have no value to give and you're here to learn how to give value.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm going to teach you how to get value. Can you please go and pick up the dry cleaning from up the road? Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll do it for you. Okay, great. I had this kid once, walks out, goes up the road, comes back. He goes, sorry, I didn't know which dry cleaner are you talking about. And I said, oh yeah, it's just around the corner there. He goes, okay, goes to the dry cleaner, comes back. Sorry, what was the guy said, we haven't paid yet. Okay, that's fine, you can take my card. Goes up the corner, comes back. By this time, you realise he's taken his phone with him to ring me. Comes back again. Says to me, okay, I've got the dry cleaning now. Where do you want me to put it? I'm like, the car. Goes to the car, comes back. Sorry, it's locked. Where are the keys? Yeah. Okay, so that is a very friction experience for me as a consumer. It means I can tell you right now, he goes out to the consumer, do a simple photo shoot, and he's going to cause that owner problems.
Yeah, I don't know how to get in the door. I don't know how to get, where are the keys? Where is this? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So you see the amount of questions that I had to ask him are pretty, or he had to ask me, and then I had to answer.
You would call it common sense.
They seem innocuous. They're not major things. Yeah. People will look at what's wrong with that. But with every thought I have to do as a consumer,
friction.
It's causing friction, which means there is no way if this guy asked for me to do something that's of a major influence in my life, I'm going to listen to him. So then you bring another guy in. You bring in Peter Clattis. Okay? Peter Clattis comes in. Lovely young guy, right? And he's a top agent now, or he's going to be a top agent. But he's a very good agent, okay? Very good agent. He comes in. Peter Clattis walks in. I ask him the same thing. I said, Peter, dry cleaning. He goes, which dry cleaner exactly? Around the corner. Okay. Have you paid yet or haven't you? Can I have your card? Yep, absolutely have my card. After I get the dry cleaning, where do you want me to drop it off to your car? Yep, where are your keys? Here. Thank you very much. Walks up the road, gets it. Picks it up. I see him walking back. As he's walking back, he shoots me a text. Do you want me to just drop these off to your home? Because if I put them in your car, it's going to eat up space. Winner.
Yeah, I get you.
Same outcome.
Yeah.
He's got a big vision, but he's got myopic focus, different experience. So then Peter now asks for something from me, and I'm more prepared to listen to what he has to say. But the people that come into this industry, they actually don't understand that, I say it all the time, you're selling your good character, you're also selling a frictionless experience. And that actually starts from the smallest amount of detail. Can I trust you? 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 Yes, I can trust you. It's not get a yes out of me. It's get an acknowledgement that I can trust you out of me.
Yep.
I think that's two different things.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
I agree.
So that's pretty much it from the hiring part.
I've got two more questions for you.
Yeah.
All right, you spoke at the start, before we just kicked this off, you said to me, I'm going to bring it back to this. I told you I was going to bring it back to this. We were talking about signs.
Yeah.
And I had so many questions, right?
You were actually rude
Yeah.
when I used to speak to you.
Wow.
Like
Yeah.
I have it. I probably had an ego.
But
It was
do
bad.
Do you know what? I just had such belief in what I was doing worked, right? Not necessarily was right.
Yes.
Yeah, it worked.
But you
right?
should. But a guy doing those deals should have that belief.
Well-
I love the fact you had belief about your own process.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, that was no joke, 100%. Yeah, and I remember saying to you, like, listen, I go, you seem to be very strict around the company, but in a good way. Yeah, I said, so I've noticed none of your agents have got faces on their signboards or on their pointer signs, and I'll go, why? And you'd give me an answer, and I'll say, okay, well, but this is what I do. This is what worked. You know, I've had a buyer ring me off a signboard. I've had an owner ring me that wanted to sell. Or I said to you, why don't you do auction videos? Why don't you advertise what's fun about real estate? You know, what people want to see. And you said, well, do you believe that gets the maximum outcome? And I said, but it works to generate business, right? From a buyer's or a seller's perspective, right? What is the difference, I guess, between what I was saying, what is worked? Like if I've got an agent that's telling me this is what works for me.
But I remember you and I had a conversation, and we said this. It was similar to that, but I said, well, I can tell you, we put pointer signs up also without our faces on it, and your definition of works is listings and people call you, and we still get listings and people call us.
Yeah.
So can we agree that your way works in that definition and our way works in that definition? And you said, yeah, fair enough. I said, let's make the metric, what does the consumer find less cringe, and what is the purpose of the pointer sign in the first place?
So you went back to the consumer.
And that's what I mean, central focused argument. Now, if you said to me, I don't care about the consumer, that's what I want to do, then that comes back to the value, which means that this is a nonsense conversation. We're never going to be able to bring it back. You've told me some things you do for the consumer that I agreed with too. And so long as it came back to that. So that's the real conversation. It's like only do what's necessary that's going to impact the person you're serving. And if you simplify it and do that well enough, the person you're serving is going to give you what you want.
So if I was turning around and saying, listen, I do these videos, I do these market wrap-ups or whatever the case may be.
Market wrap-ups.
Yeah.
It's like an economist.
Oh, I love it.
I've seen it. But you know what I don't like about the market wrap-ups? Why be a news reporter? That's not how you speak in real life. Oh, today we had 65 people through our open homes. Inspections.
The camera turns on, man. And
but what's inspections are going great and everything's fantastic. I get it. Maybe when I was 20, I was doing that because I was unsure of myself. But you're seeing full-grown business owners who are having conversations with the public as if they're children and they're not human either.
That got me. Yeah.
So what? And I would say to you, well, why sit there? Today we had 65 people. We're seeing a great amount of. What is this?
But you know what? I used to think that advertising and marketing was the same.
Yeah.
Right. Does that make sense? I thought I understood messaging. I thought I understood messaging. I thought I understood the marketing message or whatever the case may be. I just thought in my mind, if I'm providing value to the consumer, I was always going to win. Right. I didn't think at the time I was cringy. Does that make sense?
How does your head on a pointer sign provide value for the consumer?
They know who I am. I thought they'd know what I look like.
So if they know who you are and what you look like, that's of value to them?
Yeah. See, now that I look back on it, I cringe. Yeah, but at the time, I just wanted everybody to know who I was.
It's the only industry in the world that does that, man.
I agree. Well, it's the only industry in the world, for some reason, that celebrates income, which that I always had a problem with, right? But one other thing as well, the platform belief, right? I know you've done a lot of posts on it on socials, and you're a lot more open to people knowing what we do inside the business and stuff like that. Who was it for? It started with the comms log communication, making sure you fill the gaps for agents.
What did you think it was for at the start? You were saying to me that we're trying to get rid of real estate agents.
Yeah, you know what I thought it was at first? I just thought it was an admin. I was like, okay, this doesn't make sense. I'm like, okay. To be honest, I thought, I'm doing this myself. That's what I thought until I seen the detail and the thought into it and how many moving parts. Who would you think it's for now? Like, do you believe it's for agents? Do you believe it's for the industry? Do you believe it's for the consumer? Do you believe it's for the vendor, the seller, the buyer?
I believe everything has to be for the person who's benefiting from that service.
Because you're the only person that I know. Everyone else I speak to talks about CRMs.
Yeah, that's CRMs for me. That don't make any sense. Yeah.
And still, 15 years later, not a single person in your company has a CRM. It's
because
the
if
weirdest
you
thing I've ever seen. Yeah,
yeah,
and
but that's because I could argue not a single person in any other company from what I see understands the problem they're solving, has a clear way of communicating it, has a structured process that is dynamic and can shift based on a bespoke property to maximize the outcome, fully understands the process, and has a streamlined system that communicates to the buyer and the seller to get them into a high state. So if you don't have any of that, you probably need a CRM.
So who's belief for? If I come back to that,
It's for the consumer.
the consumer, and it'll always be about the consumer.
Well, every feature that's put in place there is for the consumer. And as soon as we start making it for an agent, and
You're
we
going
say,
down a different path.
well, as soon as you start saying it's for the agent, if you can make a consumer happy and elevated, doesn't
That's
that
for
make
the
the agent life better?
Yeah, 100%.
It's actually for the agent secondary.
Yeah,
So every feature that's put in there
yeah.
is reverse engineering the owner's experience and then giving it to the agent.
How would you think since we've joined, right, in the 8 months that we've been here, right, what have we helped plug in? Like in terms of what have we helped, like as you can imagine, right, you know, you've got the marketing team, you've got Belief, you've got Oz Realty, and he's a team, and I remember when we joined,
You guys, the volume that you do.
you said hello, and my team just ignored you, went back to the phone.
Oh, that's
But
that's an interesting point too. Remember we spoke about this. Actually, we spoke about this.
Yeah.
You were saying, how do I get my team
Yep.
to relay the right communication message? The question you ask, you already know the answer to, right?
Yeah.
And then I said this to you. Remember, I said, and people out there can listen to this because it'll help them. What you value and what you tolerate, you get. So you would walk past your team, and I asked you. I said, if you asked your team how many calls they made today, and they only made 5,
I'd have a problem with it, yeah.
would you have a major problem with it?
Major.
And would you be direct in shutting it down there and then?
Yes.
Okay, but I said, if you walk in and you hear your team talking about market appraisals and property plans, would you have a problem with it?
No, that's...
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the standard you walk past is the standard you are and the standard you tolerate and the outcome that you get. So that's something out there too. I mean, you can't ask your team to do something and then walk past the standard when it drops. It means it's not their standard is your standard. Do you know what I mean?
That's a fair call. But that is changing, yeah. That is changing.
It's changed.
Yeah,
It's changed.
completely.
It's changed. What you guys are doing is mate, you guys are at scale.
What would you say to an agent
You're
who
learning
wants
to.
to do 50 deals a year, 60, or go do 100 deals or whatever the case may be, right? Would you, I'll give you an example, right? I go back to what I said at the start, like you got guys at like Haney, which goes and has 18 owners in a month, request to use him as the agent. Love it because I've never seen him make an outbound call, not to generate business, but he only makes calls to actually help the current owners that he's actually serving. That's what I loved. Yeah. What would you say a team out there with the right messaging, how impactful, how big the microphone can it be if they have the right messaging but can do the volume? Like how would that change their lives or the consumer?
I think you can answer that because you're the one who's actually 5x'd your business. You've gone from an agent to 20 people you're helping grow in your business to 40 people soon to 50 people.
You've given me a make chart in regards to creating agents.
Yeah. Helping them, yeah.
Like, and I used to work in hospitality back then. We used to always say make charts. Yeah.
What's that?
Like, it's like, when you, let's just say if I want to make a pasta and it gives you step 1.
A recipe.
A recipe, yeah. And you just...
And you just call it a recipe, man.
Well, it's called a make chart. Just chucks things in the pan, bang, and it's done.
Yeah,
right?
right.
You get a pre-cooked meal.
All right, make chart, we'll use that.
Yeah. So to me, you've given me a make chart. So when I look at somebody that enters our business and I go, okay, well, if I give them this, are they going to help, 3, 6, 7, 8, 10 owners a month, right? That's what I believe you've given me, right? Access to that.
Yeah.
Right? I don't look at someone coming on board and thinking, oh God, how am I gonna do this? Right? I've got a structure that I know that I can give them for them to grow. Like I look at everyone in our team has a co-agent. Yeah. You got guys like Pharrell, Marcus, Michael. You've even got Jacob in our team who are absolute superstars, right? I know that in the next 6, 12, 18 months, I give them this make chart based on what they've learned already within their teams. I know they're going to be able to help the consumer and also actually benefit from their own lives. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's what I believe you've given me. Scalability, very easily.
And you've given them outcomes. And back to that outcome thing, I think people need to know that. And I was having a conversation with someone about this the other day. I think it's important for people to know. And you are a good testament to that because you're starting to really grow into something huge. So it's exciting to watch. But if you're out there and you're not getting the numbers you want to get, or you're not impacting the people you want to impact, or you could be out there and things aren't going right for you, the biggest thing is to reset and think about, number one, what is the vision of the outcome? What's the problem you're solving? How do you communicate it? How do you actually solve it? And then understand this. If you are crossing a road, if you sit there and you start thinking about how it's going to happen, you would have to measure the speed of the car, the distance, the speed of yourself, whether you stop, whether you go, and then make the trip across.
You have a thinker.
So you're going to hesitate.
Yeah.
Then simplify that message and just have in your head, we're crossing the road and I can see myself clearly there.
Yep.
And what then happens? Every single human has the ability to say, I've made a decision to cross the road, and that calculation becomes completely automated. Correct? And they cross the road most of the time and everything's great.
If you've covered all that in the background, you're just going to run.
It's automated.
Yeah.
You don't even think about it.
Yeah.
And so if you get those foundations right, everything else becomes automated.
Yeah.
And now you have certainty about what you're doing. And that's why I'm seeing these agents. I'm seeing the agents in your business, Michael's business, Imam's business, James's business, Handy's business. Forget the agents, the top ones. It's the kids coming through that are tackling every day with complete certainty where they're going, what they're doing, who they're doing it with, how they're impacting, what the process is, what the standard is. And they are producing extraordinary results.
I find funny, I was speaking to one of the guys, I'll go into a listing appointment, and I said, I rang them after, I go, how'd you go? They go, I've given the owner every bit of information that they have, right, that I need to give them. I've showed them the problems in the market. I've given them a solution. I said, okay, good. And he goes, either way, whether they use me or use somebody else, I'm happy with the information that I've given them. Does that make sense? To help them make a decision.
100%.
And I was like,
no, but you know, people out there, people out there are thinking, as if you say that. Man, I used to go to listing presentations, and I used to say to people, listen, at the end of the day, go and speak to 3 agents, bring it back to the process. If they have a better process than I do to maximize the outcome, go with them. Or I'll hire them. Right? At the end of the day, it's the belief in the certainty of what you're giving. And 100%. If you know your value's there and you've done your greatest to demonstrate it and communicate it, then at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what happens after that. It doesn't matter, right? And you've now, I think, I mean, the way you used to list property, man, come on.
Look,
I mean,
man.
you're that certain about yourself, and you did a great job after the fact. But man, you used to joke. I don't know if we should say, but you used to actually joke with your certainty and your charisma. And I used to come back and used to ring me and used to say, I'm just going into a listing presentation right now. Owners trust me. And used to ring me 5 minutes later. What happened? I listed it. What did you do? I just walked in and asked them for their driver's license. And I used to go to you. I go, what do you mean? Do they know the process, know the structure? Yeah. They know I'm going to get them the maximum. We'll work it out later. Yeah, but did they understand it? Yeah, it's okay. As we go, I'll get them where they need to be.
You know what? I just felt like at the time.
But then your associate would go in and go, "Can I have your driver's license?"
I'm not going to do that. There's no chance. You can't scale that.
You used to be.
You
when
know,
you first started.
I used to look at that and go, okay, well, you use that as an extreme. Like, and you break that up a few times with me, right? Someone that I've sold for multiple times or whatever the case may be. But you know what's funny? The difference is now it's, you know, there are referrals, people that I've sold for, like any agent, you know, they've got clientele, people that they've served, right? The difference is I know, let's just say I know I'm going to get the business. Let's say I'm listing Omar Obeid's house. Yeah, I know you're going to give me the business, right? The difference is I would go, look, it's irresponsible of me now to actually list a home without you knowing exactly what you're going to go through, right? I'd bring you in, yeah?
That's the difference.
Yeah, and the one thing that you said this to me beforehand. You said I would never take a property on the market, right, or put it on, right, where I couldn't see the start, middle, and end, right, of a campaign, yeah. And I'd go one step further. Like what the biggest difference is. You say that. I actually think if the owner can't see the start, the middle, and the end, well, then they can't sell.
Yeah, but hold on. If the agent can't see the start, middle, and end, how do they transfer that belief?
Well,
if the owner could see the start, middle, and end, they wouldn't need the agent.
Yeah, but if they can see the start, middle, of end of what you're doing,
But it transfers from the agent.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So that I think is probably one of the most scalable things that I've seen, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I think the top agents, either they're winning and they don't know what they're doing, or they refuse to tell people the actual truth of what they're doing.
Yeah.
What is the scale? I can guarantee you, when you see some of the top agents out there profiling themselves, that is not what they're saying to the owner in the actual meeting. And then so what happens is young agents look at that profile, and then they mirror that profile in the meeting to the seller.
I think, you know what, that's where I disagree. I think any agent that's doing like 100, 150, 200 sales, 80, 70, whatever the case may be, depending on, volume or whatever it is, a consistent agent, I believe that person, right, is doing to a really high ability, right, somewhat, they're delivering what they're saying in the actual appointment. You can't take.
I didn't say they're not doing that in the appointment.
But whatever they're saying in the appointment, I think
I'm saying what they're saying in the appointment, they're not demonstrating that frequency online.
Well, what I think is
they're
scary,
marketing back to agents.
Yes, they're marketing back to agents. What I find is hard.
The consumer despises that type of theatric.
The agent coming up who's new
believes
20,
that's what
they have to do.
Exactly. So what's happening is these top agents are watching Giorgio Armani commercials. And what they're then doing is, they're portraying that because, listen, the number one human need in real estate, or what people get into real estate, is significance. The need to be loved. I don't care who you are. You got people out there who say, I don't need a Lamborghini. I drive a Camry or whatever, a Corolla. And then the same person turns around and says, I'm showboating my Lamborghini. Both of them are saying the same thing. One's saying that I want to be loved because look at me, I don't need a significance car. The other one's saying, look at me, I have a significance car. But at the surface, it's exactly the same, okay? Yeah. So when you got people with that need structure, they're smart enough that when they go and speak to the consumer, they're talking about their self-interest. They're advising them. They're guiding them through. But online, they're actually promoting themselves completely different than the frequency of the consumer.
They don't promote what they do to help the consumer.
So what happens when an 18, 19-year-old who wants to be loved goes and looks at that?
Disaster.
So then they take that into where?
Yeah, disaster.
They take that to the meeting.
Like I sit with people, right? It's so funny, right? I sit with agents that have wanted to come on the business or whatever, join the business or whatever the case may be. And I always find it interesting, like, they got their interview, they got the interview suit on, and their interview, what do you call it? Stature about themselves. They're prime, ready to go, a bit slick, whatever the case may be. And the first thing they talk to me is about leads, right? This is what I can do. This is what how many leads.
And if the consumer was listening to that conversation, would they pick him?
Oh, disaster.
Okay, so you can't advertise your true sales process.
But then I'll say, why does that matter? And then they look at me weird. They look at me like completely frazzled. And I go, I don't need another lead generator. It's not what we do, right? And I'll go, have you ever actually sold a home, or walk me through what you've actually done to maximize the outcome? Actually, I'll even go one step further, right? I've got a friend of mine who's in real estate. He's sort of new in the industry, works for another company, right? And he gave me a ring and he goes, hey, I don't know, I'm missing a bit of business. I said, yeah, okay, cool. Like, well, what do you think it is? And he goes, well, I'm doing the same thing, I'm talking about auction. And I said to you, explain to me what an auction is. And nothing came out.
So right? What's he doing in the room?
Yeah, and nothing came out. And I said, so really what you're saying is, and he went straight to blame in a way, and a lot of agents do this, including myself. I've done this in the past, right? He went to blame, or the other agent is doing this, or they're charging lower, or whatever the case may be. And I said, man, you are so far away from that conversation. I said, you don't even know what you're selling. Again,
exactly.
Yeah, and I said, where did you get that?
So if you don't know what you're selling, what do? You make it up.
And then I think to myself, okay, well, where did that come from? It stemmed from other high-profile agents that he's looked at, and he's just tried to piece everything together, but created a facade in terms of what he thought the consumer actually wanted.
At the surface, Ibi, and you know this better than anyone because you are one of the greatest one-on-one with people. If you are not in tune with someone's needs, where they're at, where they're going, what they're doing, you got no chance. And that is a different frequency than the frequency that's publicized out there. And I think it's heading to a very dangerous time. And I feel we're gonna change it. We're gonna fix it. It's gonna be something great. Very dangerous time where the communication message appeals to the significance of the agent
more than the owner
and the people that are following them, because they will then follow the behaviors into the owner's living room. and it's going to multiply. So until somebody can fix that and hand the process and hand the structure, equally you're going to see the rise of the professional advisor. You're going to see the rise of that.
Yeah, it's funny. I was going through, I was in an appointment and I was speaking to an owner about what processes to use. And I was going through the processes that are used in the area. Yeah, and he said, how do I have access to that? And I thought to myself, geez, if the owner had access to that in terms of seeing what processes are run, how the actual campaign, at the snap of a finger, I said, what would that do?
It'll change everything. Because every bit of bravado out there
disappears.
Yes, because the owner only wants two things fundamentally: the greatest experience, the maximum outcome. That's it.
Yeah, 100%.
That's what they want.
Yeah.
And so, do you have a process to give the greatest experience? Yeah, I give the best service. What's the best service? What I do is I get the blower on a driveway and I cut the grass for him. Look, and then they put it on Instagram, just doing the extra bits for the owner.
Yeah,
but there's the 75 moving parts that not even the greatest human is going to be able to plug on scale.
That reminds me of giving the charity, but then telling everyone that you gave the charity.
Yes, I don't think anybody's doing it through bad intent.
No.
It's nobody knows where they're starting and where they're going. And that's why, even if you look at this, ask yourself this, Ibi. You've now gone from an agent to a business owner with 20 people, 30 people, 40 people, and you've done that in the space of 12 months, right?
8 months, yeah.
8 months. How many people manage to move from listing and selling property to full-blown scaling operation of a business without missing a beat? How many? You think about every top agent, you think about their profile, you think about their team, and you think about who's the profile. Is it the business or is it them? How many have been able to do that, to scale themselves into a position? How many? Very rare.
1%, man. I think the hardest thing is...
Why do you think that's the case?
You know what's funny? I think the hardest thing is with a lot of principle-driven agencies, and so right to them, like they have every right to do this, right? I just find that it's very centered around the main principle, the selling agent, the selling principle, right? And they got such a big personality and big persona, or a big shadow, right? It's very hard for everyone around them to grow. And
they never want the person to be better than them.
Yeah,
maybe just beneath them, because they want to kind of say, well, I brought that person up and he's good because it's because of me. But if they get better than me, then they're going to have a problem. So it's just a limiting belief.
Yeah, I agree.
But whereas you want Sonny to be the greatest agent she'll ever. If Sonny, the best thing that ever happened with our business ever, I'll never ever forget it, is the day James Calantis, Hanny, and Imam did more than I did.
100%. I said this, it's funny, I said this to Josh the other day. I said, I believe him, the founding members, right, ultimately going to be like doing more than what I did, right? And he goes, what do you mean? I said, you guys, what they've done in such a short period of time with what they have access to is just unbelievable. And I think I'm probably eventually, not for a long time, don't get me wrong, but they're going to have a bigger shadow than what I ever had.
I can see it.
100%.
I can see it, and they're growing it. Listen, one quick question. From somebody to go from where they are to where they need to be, like people are looking at you now, 40, 50, 60 a month. Someone just wants to do 5, 4. I've said what I think they should do. What do you think they should do?
Oh, wow. Someone who wants to do 4 or 5? From a co-agent to an agent, or just like they started?
They just want to be. It doesn't matter. They just want to be an agent tomorrow. What?
Nah, I think ultimately they got to align themselves with a strong agent in the area, right? I don't believe, like, I got given a desk and a phone, right? And don't get me wrong, I had a lot of guidance, but it wasn't I never worked underneath somebody at the time, right? But if I did, like if I worked alongside an Omar Obeid and Imam, if I worked alongside Josh or Abdul, some of the guys for at least 12 to 18 months, and I knew, I understood the sale process before I got people to actually use it, right? Use my process. I would feel like I wouldn't have to churn through so many phone calls, right? And so much running, right?
You wouldn't need to do that extra 6 kilometers we spoke about.
Yeah, like I used to have a go-to line, with a lot of agents, and they'd go, man, I'm struggling to break into this or do this. And I used to always say, man, I didn't earn my first commission for 18 months. And that was my go-to line, And then I'm thinking to myself, I can't use that no more. Because I've got guys who are working in my team, standalone, running areas, who are helping owners.
I want to say it, but people out there are going to roll their eyes at me. Time can be brought forward by belief.
1,000,000%. Yeah,
you get that now after all of this.
Yeah. I think.
Time can be brought forward by belief.
But back to your question, I would say understand the sale process first.
Yep.
Right. Then bring people to the process that you actually want to use. Right.
Yep.
What a lot of agents do now, and I notice this with a lot of young guys, is they just can't wait, right, to bring more people on, right, with a process that they don't actually know how to execute, right, and they just don't know the art of actually how to get the maximum for the owner. Whether it's an auction, whether it's private treaty, whether it's a tender, one, they're not certain about the process, but then they're bringing people onto that process, right? I mean, what's happening is they're getting that friction from the owner because very quickly into the actual process, the owner can see what? Holy crap!
We're not going to Paris here.
Yeah, we're not going to Paris. Right.
It's going to be somewhere else.
Right. So I think align yourself with somebody who knows their process. Right. I'm not saying ours.
Yep.
Anyone's. Right. That's doing it to a very high level. Learn as much as you can. Right. Once you understand that process, bringing people to it is very easy, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like
100%.
I always say, like most agents can most people that can actually sit in front of an owner, right, and get in the lounge room and talk to people. Because if you're thinking about doing something and someone rings you, it's a pretty easy conversation. No one avoids you, right? Let's be very real. But what happens is they sit and they get so excited that they get to sit in someone's living room, and then they don't know what to say. Right? So
Or they know what to say, and then after they don't know what to do.
Or they don't know how to execute. They either don't know what to say or they don't know how to execute.
But what do you say? Oh, you know what, Ibrahim? What do you say to the people who know how to run a process, and their process is boost an owner up, drop them down, lift them back up again? Because that's a process, isn't it? Gets them to an outcome. Gets them to an outcome of sale.
Yeah,
it's a process. So you're going to have top agents out there who say, "I have a process," but what is the process's outcome? Is it to maximize the outcome and the greatest experience, or is it to get the property sold on the day and the owner where they need to be?
It's getting the property sold. It's never usually involves. I always find that right with most agents. Yeah, just to be very clear. Yeah. I think most agents start off worrying about the transaction and then they get really good and then they worry about the owner instead of the other way around.
What do you mean by that?
So what I find is like most agents, right, that start the business, start in real estate, right, start with egos. It's normal. It's okay. Like they're salespeople. There's nothing wrong with that, They start with generally a bit of an ego, right? They haven't done anything in the industry yet or done anything for the consumer, but they're worrying about the transaction and selling the home, right? But they're not worrying about giving the owner the greatest experience, right? So back to what you were saying is, right, I think that, yes, there are agents out there that sort of bring your owner up, position them take them on a roller coaster ride, if that makes sense, before they give
because
them
they believe that's how they solve the emotional bias of the seller.
Exactly, right? Yeah. But I genuinely believe most agents start that way, and then as they get more confident and credible within their process, right? They switch, but they just don't know how to fill that gap in between of keeping the owner in a high state.
And then it starts to drop off again.
Exactly, yeah. So I would say it is almost impossible to, if you're doing 4 or 5 deals a month, right? I think any good agent can give an owner a really good high state experience, Once you get to 8, 10, 15, it's something has to fall off.
And a consistent outcome.
Yeah, and a consistent outcome. So, tech, AI, a lot of things, man. Like there are so many things in the industry now which help. But
what? Tell me one thing in the industry that helps, because everything that the industry makes is for itself. It's not for the consumer. Tell me one thing. Tell me one thing.
I think what most people talk about, actually, I said that wrong, but what most people
I'm looking for it. Tell me what it is.
No, seriously, most people hire. Yeah,
that's why we had to build this whole thing. I couldn't find it off the shelf.
Yeah, they buy time. We call it buy time. Yeah.
Buy time for who?
Well, I look at it this way. Yeah. So when I hire somebody to grow an EBU, I buy time. Right. That's what I'm doing. I'm
buy time for who?
I'm buying time for me. Right.
To do what?
To help service the owner at a higher level.
Okay. Fair.
Does that make sense?
Fair.
Yeah. What I've never seen is the volume of sales that people do with such little amount of buying time. Does that make sense? Like when I heard, Haney's writing what he's writing, James, Imam, the guys in your office, I think to myself, with one person? How? I actually genuinely thought you were full of shit. Yeah, just to be quite
everyone
clear,
does. Everyone does.
Yeah.
Everyone does.
So, but
Every agent does anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think that what's it called? You either got to improve through tech, or you've got to actually improve through buying time. That's the only thing.
I don't think you can improve through tech, and I don't think you can improve through any of that. I think you need to improve through intent. I think you need to improve through your beliefs. I think that you need to improve through your actions. I think your beliefs create your actions create your culture creates your brand, and then you inject tech. It's like, if you're a kind person, you're given money, you become kinder.
Yeah. So you're saying if you inject tech into somebody who doesn't have good intent, then the tech
or doesn't have a process that actually gets the desired outcome.
Yeah.
You can't inject any process into anyone's business if what they want is an outcome that's not aligned with that process. It will never work. It doesn't matter.
It's a fair point.
It's the outcome. The outcome has to be done in a way that's consistent.
So what did you do? So you were an agent doing. Well, you told me you did 100 sales. I don't believe you. All right.
110.
110. Right. I don't believe you still.
I was nowhere near as good as you. nowhere near as good as you.
No, but you're.
But I didn't do any. I didn't work 7 days a week running around in circles.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Right. But you had a process, right? I don't know whether at the time it was marketable or whatever the case may be. I think you always had.
It'd be no matter the suburb we went to.
Yeah.
Carlingford, Dundas, Peakhurst, 25 kilometres apart. Every single suburb we made an impact doing the exact same structure. Every single suburb. It didn't matter what agent was in there.
How many people were you doing it with?
What do you mean?
Like, so you didn't have belief beforehand.
We never had the platform,
You never
but we had a manual version of the experience.
Yeah.
Which
and that was done through who?
The manual version of the experience, that was done through me analysing what I believe someone really wants.
Who would communicate with the owner 24/7?
That would be me.
Yeah. And what would the guys do that were in your team?
I would give them templates. And they would read off the templates to learn and then execute it. They wouldn't just send a template to an owner.
When I was doing 100 sales a year and you were doing 100 sales a year, we could say we ran completely different, yeah?
Yeah. So I would do it with a marketing message, you do it with a sales message. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
You do it with your sales message is, I'm going to be in the street next week conducting free market appraisals. My sales message is, prime example, 350 homes, Peakhurst. I come into the area. You have to feel the people. But this is important. This is important. You have to feel the people, right? My neighbour turns around, gets a letter saying your area is being rezoned.
Yeah.
Okay? My neighbour turns around and says, I'm really sad about this because I love my home. I love my home. I love where I'm going, but I don't even know what it means to me. Okay? My neighbour would come up to me and say, I've just been door knocked by 5 different real estate agents. What are they saying? Oh, we got developers for your property, blah, 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 blah. We got developers, your house is worth more now, all that sort of stuff. I then turn around and say to my neighbour, listen, number one, you don't even know what you can build there, neither do I. Let's find out what we can build in our area. Let's find out how it impacts us. Let's find out what happens next. Let's find out if maybe staying is the best option. Let's find out all the options together. Neighbour turns around and says to me, Omar, that's amazing. Can you please walk me through that? I said, let me find out for you and me. I come back, I see him, I have a conversation with him. They then say to me, hey, Omar, my neighbour down the road, can you go and tell them the same thing? I said, yeah, sure. I give them a call. I let them know. Suddenly I go, you know what? The whole industry, the whole neighborhood needs to know this. I make a letter saying exactly what I said. I call my dad. Dad, can you help me out and drop it? Because I'm 35 kilometers away in Carlingford. I can't do it.
You're doing this in Carlingford?
Yeah.
Okay.
My dad goes and drops the letter into every single person's household. They then ring me. Can you help me? What's going on? I go and see him. This is what it means to you. This is what you can do. This is what you can't do. Here's how a developer sees it. If you are going to sell it, watch out for this. Don't do this. My neighbor then picks up the phone. First person. Omar, we want to take care of this opportunity. Can you help us with it? I go, yeah, but the area, you got to be really clear with your value, and let's go out and actually get the maximum. We get the maximum. I repeat the message. I keep going. I haven't made one call. I'm in Carlingford. My phone goes off the hook.
How far away from your office?
35 kilometers. There was no office here. I had no intention to come into this area. And then I started to see, well, hold on. Every agent's leading with the same point of interest to everyone, everywhere. And then I saw it interstate. And then I saw it around the world. And then I watch $1 Million Listing and I hear what they're saying. It's the same thing everywhere you go.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, hold on. Do you have a marketing message that solves a problem? And can you actually solve the problem with your process? And if the answer is yes, nothing will ever stand in your way of success. Nothing. Because fundamentally at the core, it's the truth.
What made you... So I look at going into an area, right? I used to look at, okay, well, how many sales did that suburb do? Right?
I had no idea how many
Yeah,
sales.
I used to go, okay, well, let's just say Leppington does 150 sales, then I'm called, 150 properties sell in those two suburbs, there's 300 properties, and I'm thinking, okay, well, cool, there's something to work with.
Man, I heard agents say, if you want to build a brand, make sure you find an area that can sustain your hunger.
Yeah, but what was
this?
What was your selection of a suburb? Did you look for
My
a problem?
Yes, I look for whispers. So if there's whispers about how
I was gonna believe this. How do you mean you look for whispers?
whispers is if I speak to a neighbor and neighbor says to me, I just keep getting knocked on my door telling me I should sell my home today. I'm like, that's a whisper. That's a problem in the market. Yeah. If I look at, hey, I went to buy a house, and occasionally things are going to happen with us as we grow, but it's not a consistent whisper, right? Yeah. A consistent whisper is you ask 10 people and they all say the exact same thing. Now, here's a major whisper. Ask 10 people around the world scattered from, I got a developer in Pakistan. This is a developer in Pakistan. I said, Sufyan, how would you describe a real estate agent? He had the same answer in Pakistani as my neighbor had in Peakhurst.
Yeah.
Problem to be solved.
Yeah.
We've got the answer.
Yeah.
How can it not go? It's a responsibility of us to take it around the world. People are going to listen to this. Around the world, what are you talking about? You're just a real estate agent. You're doing what I'm doing. You're doing kiss, hug, pinch, sandwich and all this crap. That's what they're thinking. I know what they're thinking, and that's okay. Yeah. I know what they're thinking. But eventually they will see what we're doing. They'll adopt it themselves. They'll help more people.
Well, that's happening, yeah?
Well, did you see what happened yesterday in the marketing? Everyone's hammering me. Your messaging of marketing. What's this marketing about? Next minute, I see this guy from another company write, your energy is so bright, remain bright as you can be, or something like that, right? You saw it. You sent it to me. Fine.
Good on him, though. Good on him.
Do it. I don't care. Do it. But do it with the right intent.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. That's kind of what we've been experiencing. So, yeah, anyway, that's it, man. Call it a day.
Done.